Russ, are we doing a pre-show or not?
No.
Okay. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, May 17th, 2024. I got the date right.
I'm Jan Levine, a very happy but tired Ranger fan right now.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology. Glad you got the date right, Mike.
Kevin Allen, Detroit Hockey Now.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. And the reason Jan is tired is because the New York Rangers rallied in the third period, and I think Jan was at the game. It was at the viewing party at MSG.
Yep.
Rangers, and here, Kev, this is just the superstitious hockey person that I am, and I watched the third period after the fact. But I have New York Rangers in my hockey pool, and I want the Rangers to win. And they were not playing particularly well in the first two periods, and I'm like, you know what? I'll switch over, watch, checked in the basketball game, watched a little bit of something else because I don't think Edmonton and Vancouver had started yet. And I look at my phone, and all of a sudden it's 4-3 Rangers, and I'm like, gee, it was me. I just had to turn off the game. I mean, that's the same type of superstition as like you're sitting watching the game and you don't want to move because you think your team is doing well because you're not moving.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's we picked that up when we're about 9 or 10 years old, and
right.
It just carries with us to adulthood. But I was watching that game with my wife last night, and we're watching it, and she wanted the Rangers to win. Not sure why, but that's how she felt about it.
Right.
And I said, well, it'll come down to this. I said, if they get the tying goal, they'll win it 4-3. And she goes, well, what do you mean? How do you know that? And I said, because I've been watching hockey for 40 years, and that's how it works. If you get a tying goal, you immediately get one, and then Carolina will have to scramble. And lo and behold, we were watching, and that's exactly what transpired, because you could just feel, you could just watch, and you could see Carolina deflate giving up that goal. They just knew they were in trouble, and they were. And goaltending, I thought for sure Russ will be talking about that today. I thought it betrayed Carolina for sure in that game.
I'll go to Jan because he's got limited time here, and then we'll go to Russ. But our mutual friend Corinne, who covers the Canadians, tweeted out, I'm sure Mike in Buffalo is somewhere right now railing against Freddie Anderson not being a playoff goaltender. And lo and behold, I am, and I'm not taking anything away from the Rangers and their rally in the third period, but the momentum was built on that goal to Kreider where he could not hold his skate against the post, and Kreider got it in there. And as soon as you saw that, Jan, I mean, I saw it after the fact, but as soon as you saw that, I saw it on the replay, you had to say, okay, now they're in trouble.
So it's interesting. So talking about goalies, so Igor wasn't great early, right? He was struggling to handle the puck. He was struggling catching the puck. If you look one of the goals, I think the first one was scored because he could have grabbed the puck out of the air and let it go past. And by doing so resulted in the opportunity. And look, Carolina also was a little unlucky. Gensel hit the post twice. Martinuk hit the crossbar. There was another save where he got it with the post and the knob of his stick that was almost going into net, and he made the save. But in the third period, the difference was, as you said, is Shesterkin made 16 saves and didn't let any pass. And Anderson's issues with pucks at his feet, which we saw with the Lafreniere goal in Game 4, where he banked it off the back of his leg into his goal, came to the fore, right? So they made it 3-2. But you can kind of see the momentum starting to turn then, as Kevin said, right? They started to pick it up. Actually, Jack Roslovich, who was brutal the first two periods and actually kind of brutal most of the series, probably had his best period as a Ranger last night. I mean, he was all over the place in the third period using his speed. And he then helped create the goal also. And then they made it. Then Brady Shea put the puck out of play. The referees all got together as three blind mice and basically missed the call. Because Shea put it out, but then they had a very questionable call on Jordan Staal, who did hit Zibanejad from the back. I mean, there was no question whether or not you want to say it was enough for a cross check. I don't know. I heard the comment made by Staal that Zib dove, but whatever it is, he sold it. And then Panarin had a shot from the point that Kreider did his Kreider special where he tipped it home, and it was 3-3. And as Kevin said, the momentum started to turn some more. And then they got the goal to make it 4-3, which was a great passing play between Roslovic and Ryan Lindgren, who morphed into Adam Fox offensively yesterday. He was the offensive one of the duo because Fox was not particularly great. He had the goal that Martinook basically saved with a dive across the net before it went into the net. And every Ranger fan's vision, as you say, superstition was that that's going to be the highlight going forward. Rangers blow 3-0 lead. Martinook's save is basically the game saver of the thing. But Lindgren found Kreider for the goal, and it was 4-3. Now, granted, Carolina charged, but the Rangers, as Kevin said, that once the momentum started to turn on their first goal, you could start to see them get a bit tighter on the second goal, and then obviously the third goal to make it 4-3.
Russ, I didn't know Cale Makar was on the Rangers when Lindgren goes behind the net and feeds it out in front. But you made an observation when we talked last night about Kreider just being the horse that he is and going to the front of the net and beating out, I think it was Seth Jarvis.
Chatfield. The third goal was Chatfield and in front of Orlov down low.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Chatfield. That's right. I think he beat Jarvis before he got to Chatfield. But either way, yeah. So two things. A couple of years ago, I was on with Mick Kern, and he asked me about Chris Kreider because every fan wanted him traded. That contract's horrible. He's horrible. And last 2 years, he's been great. And I kept saying, listen, just wait on him. He'll score goals. He's a goal scorer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even worried about the contract. Now he's turned into one of the best net front presence guys in the league, one of the best deflectors in the league. Like, he sort of reminds me of Phil Esposito in the crease. He does. Mm-hmm. Because now it's like you got to have two guys go up against Chris Kreider if he's in there. And so it does wreak a lot of havoc. The goal under Anderson's glove definitely was a deflator. But, Scott Laughlin from SiriusXM put up a good thing. Was this one of the greatest Ranger, performances ever? And sure, it definitely was. And this one even predated me, but only because I had interviewed Pete Stemkowski about it. He had a triple overtime goal against
Chicago in 71, right?
71. And they lost that series in game 7.
Yep.
But that was a game 6, and that was a big winner. And when I spoke to, Stemkowski about it, pretty sure that was, other than the cup with the Leafs, that was the next biggest highlight of his life. And so I think it's just with that one. I think they're both, and he had to do that on Tony Esposito too. So that's,
Well, I mean,
hard to score on Tony. Kevin could talk about that.
Yeah, this game was sort of a microcosm of the season for Shesterkin because I agree with what I think, Jan, you said. He wasn't strong in the first 2 periods, but I think he made 16 saves in the third and really, kept Carolina at bay. I will say this, and this was an interesting statistic, Kev. That was the first. I think the MSG said it was the first third period rally to win a game where a player scored a hat trick since the Mark Messier game in game 6 against New Jersey in '94. So the promissory game. And I know that
Kreider didn't predict it.
No, Kreider didn't predict it.
But he did predict one. Supposedly in the locker room, he said in between the second and third period that he was going to get one in the third period, which he didn't want to answer. But Trocheck and Goodrow supposedly made the comment that they both heard him say it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I look at the Rangers right now, and like I said, I mean, they were my pick to come out of the East. And, right now they're going to be waiting on Florida, Boston. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But, I mean, it's tough to pick against them when you have a goaltender like Shesterkin who can – either steal games or in game when he's not playing well, sort of summon up something to really take control of the game.
Well, we're a sport where the best team doesn't always win,
right?
Especially in the postseason. But in this case, that's exactly what happened. I mean, if you watch the Rangers in Carolina, the Rangers they have more. Their goaltending is better. There's just everything about that team I like. They've got, even though Carolina has a terrific defense, in my opinion, that, the Rangers' talent level on their defense can measure up against that as well. So there's just so much going for the Rangers. And, Carolina still hasn't proven what they can do. And the Rangers stepped up in a big way in this series.
Carolina's like that unfulfilled potential, almost like the Sharks. Like you look at this team and you're like, you have a great team, you have a great coach. Yeah, we know your goaltending's not the best, but everything else is pretty much there, and they just can't get over the hump.
No,
there are more successful Maple Leafs. I mean, at least they win series, but they don't, with the talent level that they haven't, reached the level that a lot of people thought they have. Now, I want to ask about this because, Kev, the speculation will ramp up until Rod Brind'Amour signs the extension in Carolina, if he does. But right now, the perception is out there because there's so many coaching jobs, specifically Toronto, but there are other ones as well, that these teams might be waiting to find out whether Brind'Amour is available or not. And that's like question number one when it comes to the Hurricanes going into the summer.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be absolutely stunned if he left Carolina. Mm-hmm. Saying all that, I mean, why are we here? What's going on? It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I know what Brind'Amour's relationship is with Don Waddell. It's very strong. They work out together every day. They're, friends beyond working for them. So whatever's going on, it's obviously about money and probably coming from the ownership level.
Right.
But I think Tom Dundon, having interviewed him several times and gotten to know him a little bit, he doesn't mind paying for talent. And I think Rod Brind'Amour is talent.
Well, I mean, all right. So taking from that point, if he doesn't mind paying for talent, then why didn't he pay for it before the playoffs started? Like, why was he waiting? He still, this doesn't make sense. And all he's doing is just creating extra drama and giving other teams an opportunity to give your guy a better offer. Like at some point, he may lose this game, Kev.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand it either. I'm with you. I don't exactly know what's going on. I haven't had a chance to, investigate it at all. But, I don't know what the holdup is. I mean, clearly they want to keep him. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's like the classic old line. How do billionaires get to be billionaires? By
saving
holding
money,
the line and things like this. Yeah. So maybe that's what he's doing. I just don't know the answer to this, but I still would be shocked.
Yeah. So would I. I mean, but Jan, I mean, there was talk before the Rangers hired Laviolette that they were interested in Brind'Amour. That never came to fruition. There was talk in Buffalo that Kevin Adams might hold off until the Brind'Amour situation was clear before he hired a coach. But the speculation is that the ownership wanted Lindy Ruff, so they made that move. Now there's speculation with Toronto where Berube is the front runner. McClellan has been interviewed, but Brind'Amour now could be out there, or Joel Quenneville could be out there.
Francis is waiting. Like he
has
Ron
Francis in Seattle. So the coaching carousel really is on hold until Carolina makes a decision on Brind'Amour, or Brind'Amour makes a decision on Carolina.
I mean, you look at the culture he's established in the last 6 years, right? And as Kevin has said, right, they Russ said also, they haven't gotten over the hump yet, right? They made the Eastern Conference Finals. They've lost twice to the Rangers. I mean, look, they were the better team at times during the series. Even it was 3-0, right? Carolina still carried play, and they had a prime opportunity to win this series. I don't have any doubt with it, and admitting it isn't taking anything against the win from the Rangers, because, look, Carolina finished 3 points behind them, right? They added Gensel, which is what we all thought they needed. They needed a prime scorer. He had a good, not great series. Aho had a great series, and I'm sure we're going to hit Netcash had a great series, and he is an RFA, right? So they have an enormous amount of tough decisions they're going to have to be made there. But Brind'Amour is the one who's established the culture and what exists with that team. And to me, letting him go, and as Mike said, right, there's a lot of options, right? He's not starving for options. It's not like, oh, I'm going somewhere lousy. He can go to Toronto, where they need a culture changer. He can go to New Jersey, where they need a culture changer. He can go to Seattle, that's had some level of success, and he has a relationship with Francis. So Dundon and Waddell are both playing a very dangerous game, that if they don't resolve it very rapidly, as Kevin said, they're going to lose, right? He's going to go elsewhere, and you're going to have to find another coach to have to be brought on board, cognizant of all the other changes they're going to have to be made in with your team, including potentially between the pipes now, where probably Kochetkov has to become your number one, because Anderson.
They've been staying away from that, and I don't know if that's Brind'Amour or it's just circumstance. It seems like Brind'Amour doesn't trust him enough.
And after a slow start, Kochetkov played really well this year, and he even got into the playoffs this year. But I mean, I understood based the way Anderson played in a very limited window this year. I understood, and his experience that they stuck with him. But you know, he also has that experience and that sort of aura of him from Toronto is that he can't win.
And I don't think that this win, because Laviolette being their former cup-winning coach, beating Brind'Amour, the favorite son, doesn't burn the fan base a bit, because it does.
One thing about Brind'Amour, he's not that guy. Like the guy that Jan just described about looking around and seeing his option. That's not Rod Brind'Amour, not at all. In fact, you know, I can tell you for sure that Don Waddell has said he'd like Rod to be more involved in player selections and stuff. I mean, Rod Brind'Amour just wants to coach, and he's not he's not Mike Babcock. You know, he's not looking around saying, "Boy, that team would be a little better." That's just not him. Like, he's not looking for a better team, or he's not looking for a higher visibility. You know, that's just not his personality. I mean, it wasn't his personality when he played. You know, he's a guy that wants to do his job. You know, he wants to feel good about it, and I think he feels he knows all these players in Carolina, and he wants to try to win with this team. Now, saying all that, I think he is a guy that wants to get fair value. So if he doesn't feel like he's getting fair value, I mean, that's a different story. But he just is not like your normal ambitious coach. So what can be my best offer? That's just not him.
And I don't know.
He may just get forced into it, Kevin. Right? Because if they don't sign him, right, he's eventually going to say, you know what?
That's the thing.
Yeah,
I mean, the only other thing they got here, he knows they want him. I mean, just his relationship with Don Waddell. Like, I mean, I'm not exaggerating. Like, these guys are buddies. Yeah. They like each other. They trust each other. They respect each other. So, like, he knows that the Carolina wants him. It may be just coming down. I mean, the other thing too is Rod Brind'Amour does not lie. He doesn't.
Right.
And what has he already said? I fully intend to. I'm going to stay here. I fully, I expect I'm going to have a contract. So I think he believes all that.
If it's up to him, he's going to be back. If Dundon says, "Well, it's been 6 years, and the window of coaching,"
Dundon's not. You can dismiss that. I know for sure that's not the case.
Okay.
Well, but let's say the case is, they're offering Brind'Amour 4 for 4, and let's say Francis goes, "Well, I'll give you 6 for 5." Then he's probably going to think about it, right? He's a human being.
Yeah, he will, but I'm not sure that would still be enough to get him to go.
Or Toronto offers him, the Babcock deal, 8 for 6.5.
Yeah. I mean then you're getting to what Jan says. You kind of get forced into it.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Just one other thing on Carolina. And by the way, I think I heard the stat, and I think it's correct. Laviolette has not lost in that building since he won Game 7 in 2006 as head coach of the Hurricanes against Edmonton to win the Stanley Cup, and since then has not lost a playoff game in that building because he won Game 2.
That's wild. I was there for Game 7, but I had no idea if that of the rest of the stuff. But that's wild, man.
He won Game 3. He won Game 3, 4, and now 6. So they won all 3 games in Carolina.
Yeah.
But
they lost. Mike, they lost Game 3 and 4.
They lost Game 3. Okay. Then
they won the first 2 at home. They lost. They won the first 3. They won 3. They lost Game 4.
They won the first 3. Yeah, that's right. After because they won the Panarin. It was the Game 4 that they lost. Okay, yeah. So that's.
But one thing that kind of gotten lost in all this is, I'm not sure Peter Laviolette ever gets enough credit for being a quality coach. Like, wherever he goes, he ends up making the team better, and he gets them. either over the hump or beyond where they had gotten before. You know, he seemed to find a way to get the most out of his team. So, you know, it's pretty impressive.
He's a great shooter. Like I've interviewed him a bunch over the years. You know, he's a Flyers coach, and I covered that cup and everything. And he's really a straight shooter, and really he knows how to communicate with players. That's his best thing, is he gets through to players.
Yeah.
And that's why, even though I thought maybe there were better hires than Laviolette, I knew Laviolette would get Panarin's offense back. Like, I knew that was a guarantee. Like, there was no problem. Panarin would be back to his old self, because, you know, and so like, he knows how to unlock players.
His one failing is he doesn't know how to manage up. He's usually at odds with his GM. You know, he doesn't treat them with the kind of respect that they expect to have, and that generally gets him in trouble. So whenever there's a, you know, at some point where it could go either way, it never goes Peter's way, because somewhere along the line.
Mike Keenan had that in him too.
Yeah, I was just saying that hasn't happened with the Rangers before, has it?
Like David Poile may have been one of the finest human beings ever to be a general manager, and he even had issues with David. Like, you know, David ended up, you know, somehow just exasperated at times with.
Although Eck did say I once annoyed David Poile on this broadcast when Forsberg was going through his contract squabbles, but like, it wasn't intentional.
No, we won't go into detail on this, but for future reference, before July 1st, Don Waddell's got a lot of business to do in the summer.
Oh.
Okay, Seth Jarvis RFA, Neckish RFA with arbitration rights at forward. Jake Gensel UFA, Teuvo Teravainen UFA. Martin Okanoisen, those are UFAs, but not the impact guys. On defense, Chatfield, UFA, D'Angelo, UFA, Pesci, and Shea, UFA. I don't know if there's any way they can bring all of them back. They're gonna have to pick. They're gonna have to pick and choose. And the interesting thing that Elliot Friedman dropped on the radio show a few minutes ago that I was listening to on the way here, there is talk, Kev, about them buying out Jesperi Kotkaniemi because he's making 4 point something. It would be a 1/3 buyout since he's only 23 years old. It would be like, I think he's got 6 years left in the contract. It would be 12 years, but the cap hit would be less than $1 million. So they would save $20 million on that salary or on that contract if they decided to go down that road. Now they have time there because you can do that until the age of 26, but with all these players that they have to make decisions on, 4 point something million dollars or $4 million would be valuable in signing some players.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. And, you know, that'd be the kind of thing, one of the primary reasons that more buyouts don't happen is you've got to walk into the owner and say, you know, I'm going to burn up your millions of dollars. I'm going to stand up on the 27th floor and just throw out, $2 or $3 million over the side.
I'll be down there catching it.
Yeah, it's hard to face that. But in this case, Tom Dundon's a big businessman, a good businessman, quality guy who understands finances. That's easy for him to understand. In fact, he may have been the one that came up with it. So that's a pretty easy sell. And you're right that the money that they saved this year, even $3 million, like maybe that's the difference between keeping one of their 2 defensemen.
Yeah, the one thing though, this is a failure of the and it's not even so much Don Waddell. I felt like maybe it was Tolsky, maybe it was somebody else that made them go and get him on an offer sheet. So they had this trophy. Look, we got Kotkaniemi, and now it's been a mistake.
It is a mistake, and it is a failure. And Don Waddell is the general manager, so he's ultimately responsible.
He's the ultimate guy, but I don't think he initiated it.
Dundon may have wanted to, played a role in that as well. But yeah, now he just hasn't contributed the way they needed him to.
Right, and I can't imagine them, because Shea has been really good for them the last couple of years. I can't imagine them like not wanting to re-sign him. Pesci was injured. There's been a lot of talk about him hitting the market on July 1st. And Kev, you look at their, what's going on with them next year, like Orlov, Slavin, and Burns. I mean, Burns will probably retire after next year, but Slavin and Orlov have 1 year left in their contract. So they're going to be talking extensions with those guys. So a lot of business they're going to have to do over the next, July 1st is going to be very busy for Don Waddell.
Yeah, for sure. And, Pesci, if he goes all the way back to, last off season, whether they're going to trade him, so, probably in hindsight, they should have.
I mean, he's 29. He's going to want a big contract. And if he doesn't get it, he's going to test the market, I feel. Yeah. Teravainen, I think, is one of their core guys. I don't think he's going anywhere. And Netchus, if I were a team, I would call them. I would call Carolina and really see, because there were some really good flashes from him. He had 9 points in 11 games, but I still don't feel like he's being used or utilized the right way. He's got to play a more wide open style, and I think his game is more well-rounded, but I don't think it's suited for the Hurricanes. I think it's suited for other teams.
Russ, maybe Montreal will offer sheet him.
Yeah, that would be funny.
The other,
you won't get him as cheap as Carolina got Kotkaniemi. That's
no. Or in retrospect, what they got by matching Aho. I mean, that deal ended up being pretty good for them. So
right.
So okay, the other game last night, which I watched the first two periods, fell asleep, and then woke up late in the third period when it was still tied. So I didn't miss anything, thank goodness. The Vancouver Canucks beat the Edmonton Oilers, take a 3-2 lead in the series, going back to Edmonton Game 6 on Saturday night. Kev, I picked the Oilers in this series, surprisingly for everybody, because they know I don't like the Oilers, because I just didn't see Vancouver being able to win with Artur Svilov in goal. He hasn't been the problem. They've gotten good goaltending out of him. And last night, put out an APB for Connor McDavid, because I didn't really notice him that much.
Yeah, it's just amazing that with that, with Connor McDavid, that they, it's talk about teams that can't get over the hump, and it's just, almost to the point where, you wonder what they're going to have to do. It's a very similar situation to Toronto, where.
Right.
And you're going to have to make some decisions. And, already this morning I read a, story about, is Ken Holland going to be the GM in Columbus? What's going to happen there? So I don't know. It's really stressful, but I think we got to give some credit to Vancouver. Like, I just thought, I guess we all felt, maybe not all of us, but certainly I did. I thought at some point we were going to start to see Vancouver. Okay, they can't possibly, get this good this quick, even though they had a lot of talent, and yet they just keep doing it. So here we go again, and maybe the failing is not Edmonton, but maybe this is all about how much better Vancouver is, and they've got their issues too, and yet they still keep going. Pedersen.
Yeah.
He did play better, at least, in that game.
He did. For sure. Yeah.
The speculation is he's nursing some sort of injury. But
right.
Yeah, but he did throw what ended up being a controversial check in the game. Russ, it looked like he was trying to emulate Nicholas Kronwall. He tried to do the double cheek check, but he jumped, and when he jumped, I guess that was the reason that he got penalized.
I got a couple of things on this one.
Yeah.
First one is, right now, one of the best players in all the playoffs is Nikita Zadorov. Not only has he got 8 points in 11 games, he's scoring with his shot that we all saw when he was a prospect, but it just didn't really come through most seasons. But he's in the head of Evander Kane too. He dumped him into the bench once. He did a crying thing to him. Now, Kane did score in yesterday's game, and he's doing okay, but I do feel like he's got this mental edge over Edmonton. But on the other side, Spilov's played fine. I thought Edmonton, I told Mike this on the phone, Edmonton was giving up some prime chances to the net. Not Vancouver was to Edmonton. And I don't think Edmonton took advantage of it enough. They were getting to the net early on in that game, and I thought they could have piled up some more goals early. that they didn't, and that was a big problem. I think next game you got to just keep going to the net, because I don't think Vancouver has the defense to stop them, and Edmonton at home should be able to control those matchups.
Yeah, one of them. Russ and I were talking on the phone, Kev, in the first period, and it was just a blatant giveaway right to Draisaitl in the slot, and Svilov made the save, and Russ was saying, well, Svilov looks shaky. He says, well, he just stopped Draisaitl on a clear-cut chance. It's more the fact that the defense like served it up and you gave him a pizza right in the slot. I mean, you can't do that with Edmonton. I mean, if they continued to do that, then they would have been really rough shape. But they seem to like settle in and play better defensively. And really, and I know that I've heard a couple people talk about this. The JT Miller matchup against McDavid has really.
He's doing it, man.
He's doing it. He's shutting them down, which, I mean, I don't know if he can do it for the entire series, but he's shutting them down right now.
Yeah, no, he's done a good job. And he's always been a really good two-way player.
Yes. Never 100-point total shutdown guy. Like, he's put it all together the last 2 years.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's a really effective player. Like, when there was a lot of discussion about whether Vancouver was going to trade JT Miller because I'm thinking, no, there's no way they're going to trade JT Miller just because he can do way too much.
Right.
Yeah, so, I mean, that series, as I said, going back to Edmonton for Game 6, and now the speculation is, do they go away from Calvin and Pickard and go back to Skinner for Game 6, or do they stick with – Yeah, I mean, I don't think Pickard was the reason they lost.
But I just think you got your mileage out of him. He got you a win. Switch it back.
But we won't talk about this now, but if they lose this series, then – not only the Ken Holland stuff, Kev, but, Draisaitl's got a year left in his contract. What are they going to do? They have a lot of free agents. I mean, there could be a paradigm shift in Edmonton. If they lose, I mean, even if they win, they're probably going to be some changes because they have a lot of free agents. But really, I mean, if they don't win, that team was structured to win now, and if they don't win, then you'd probably think there's going to be some changes there.
Well, yeah, you would think so, but you got to be careful on that because I don't think they want to lose Connor McDavid. So, you almost have to bring him into the tent and say, this is what we're thinking about doing to get his feelings on it because, he's the guy. If they're ever going to win, he's going to be the catalyst, though. Right. They've got to make sure that what they're doing doesn't, that it doesn't alienate him. Like,
no.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. When you got an elite level talent like that, you got to try to make it what's best for him, and no one knows better what's best for him than Connor McDavid. So,
right.
But the problem is it's hard to know what it is they need to do. I mean. Clearly, they got to get better defensively, but that's easier said than done.
Yeah, they have three good defensemen, but as I said, the bottom half of their blue line is well below average, and that you could say bottom pairing defenseman doesn't mean anything. Well, when you plug those holes with like veteran guys, defense wasn't the problem for Toronto this year. When they acquired like Lyubushkin and Edmondson, those were hole pluggers that were really good. I mean, I'm just not inspired by Brett Kulak and Cody Ceci and Vincent Desharnais.
I think he played well. Ceci is always on the edge.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the defensive core of Vegas and Dallas and Colorado, and Colorado obviously they've had some injury issues, or Florida. Or Boston. I mean, these teams, they all have better defenses than Edmonton, and the goaltending that goes without saying. Okay, the two other series, those series that are playing Game 6s tonight, and you have Boston and Colorado hosting in an potential elimination game. Start with the Florida-Boston series. Kev, Jeremy Swayman has been incredible. He, not single-handedly, but he was a big part of them beating Toronto in the first round, and he stole the game in game 1 and now game 5. They go back to TD Garden, where, by the way, the Bruins record, they lost game 2 to Toronto, they lost game 5 to Toronto, they went to overtime in game 7, and they lost both games to Florida in the second round. So they've had no luck at home, but they have to have luck tonight or their season is over.
Yeah, it's funny about home ice. I mean, we all know this in the media, but it hasn't caught on with fans yet. I mean, for the last decade, it's really been a 50-50 type situation. Like the idea of home ice advantage really does not exist, except in a game 7, where it does still have some weight. But even then, it's not quite what it was before. But this series has been very entertaining, in my opinion, because Florida is kind of out Boston, the Boston team, and Bennett has exacted revenge from the entire league for what Marchand has done through the years on this. But it's two good hockey teams, and you got to give Boston credit as well for hanging in there and getting it done. But what's fascinating to me is Montgomery clearly made the right goalie decision. That's for sure. And the other thing too is and we're kind of a rumor-based show. Like this just leads all of us to believe that they can trade Allman in the off season. And that could really help that team in terms of getting some value for them and reducing their because you look at the free agent marketplace, and Nedeljkovic is the number 1 goalie in the free agent marketplace.
Oh yeah,
like that's.
Allmark will be on the market. Maybe UC Saros. There are 3 or 4 goaltenders that Markstrom is another one that will be the July 1st fodder for trade or even at the draft.
Yeah, one of the issues about Saros, and I don't blame him. That I did talk to a general manager about this. He said the biggest impediment to Saros is what Barry Trotz wants. Like he said, I don't care who you are. It's hard to give up everything that he wants in return for that because, it's, there are parts to it that, aren't the future. They're the now. So it's hard for a contender to do that.
Yeah, and David Pagnotta from the Fourth Period reported on this a couple days ago, and I wrote about it yesterday. There is some chatter underneath that Nashville might be a destination that Mitch Marner would waive his no-move clause, and that the Leafs' goaltending situation might be rectified by somebody like Saros. I can't imagine in a Marner deal they would trade for Askarov because Askarov isn't proven yet. But Saros,
that's why I don't think Nashville will do this deal. I don't think they would do it.
Marner, yeah.
I think they're going to keep Saros. That's my feeling.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I'm with Russ too. I think that's entirely possible because I don't think they thought they were a playoff team this year, but they were, and everybody was a little better than everybody thought. But really, Saros is crucial to that. But a little tidbit for everyone: Askarov is his team is in a playoff series against the Grand Rapids Griffins,
right?
And he's not playing. They're playing the 34-year-old veteran. He started out as the starter in the postseason,
and his numbers are good.
Yeah, he lost the first 2 games against the Texas Stars, and now he's not playing. Now, could he be hurt? Because the AHL gives even less information about injuries than the NHL.
Very true.
I mean, that's possible, but I can't imagine the Predators want to see a 34-year-old goalie playing for.
No, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, I would lean toward injury because he had a great year statistically in the AHL, and even when he came up for a couple games in Nashville, he was pretty good. So I would lean toward injury, but I don't know, you don't know. So yeah, but
it's hard to be. I mean, Kosa, who is the Red Wings he beat Askarov pretty regularly. So I mean, but that doesn't mean anything. It's just the teams playing. But
that Boston, Florida. If Boston extends it to a game 7, which I believe would be on Sunday night, if the way the schedule works out. I mean, Florida obviously doesn't want that because I think they want a couple days rest before they would be able to start their series against the Rangers in New York. And Kev, I've been fully impressed with Florida. They've really essentially continued what they did in the playoffs last year. Physical, they're getting great goaltending from Bobrovsky. I think their defense is better this year than it was last year. And, the additions that they made at the deadline, guys like Tarasenko and Oposo, they've sort of filled out that roster. So, I mean, they're really strong. I mean, Russ picked them to win the cup. I picked the Rangers to come out of the East. That series, if they do beat Boston tonight, will be wild.
Yeah, no, I know it's been pretty impressive. This is one of those cases where I think once you see them play, I would pick the Panthers as well because they've been pretty impressive. They've got everything you need to try to win a cup. So it's, they've got the goaltending, they got the physical play, they've got the defense. They seem to have the coaching. It seems to be all kind of going well, and they got to try to do it now because 2 of the top 3 free agents are, belong to those. Right. Panthers and
they got to step on the throat of the Bruins. The Bruins, look, they have a lot of crafty guys. They have good defense, good goaltending. They know how to keep it close, and Florida has to turn it on. Like they actually have to turn it on now and really just say, all right, best game's coming tonight. Maurice is I think he's building towards that with the way he's been yelling at his team and trying to prod them. So we'll see.
He's building that by the way he's yelling at his team.
Right.
And the way he's dropping F-bombs. Yeah. Now the other series, the late game tonight, the Dallas Stars go to Colorado to hopefully, in their minds, finish off the Avalanche. That will be a difficult proposition, even though we'll talk about the Nikushkin thing. I wanted to get your thoughts on that, Cap. But Rupe Hintz will not play in Game 6, and that's big because, I mean, I think that his injury, which I think happened in Game 3, or maybe it was Game 4. I think that may have turned, remember that one series a few years back when Boston was leading 3-0 and David Krejci got hurt against Philadelphia. And then
I covered that series. Yeah.
I'm sure you do, Ross. But, a key injury like that, and Rupe Hintz is their number 1 center. I mean, if he's out, he's not playing tonight. If he's out for Game 6 and then Game 7 as well, then the tide may have turned in this series, Kev.
Yeah, well, Nikushkin is important. I mean, he was playing so well for him, had a lot of goals. But, still a very dynamic team. They're just so dangerous. There's so much talent there. And Cal McCarr can take over a game. And, Nathan McKinnon, so good. Their Achilles is their goaltending, in my opinion. They just haven't had good goaltending this season, really.
They didn't have good goaltending when they won the cup either. They didn't.
No, but they had adequate goaltending.
I don't think Kemper was adequate. Remember that shaky game was like Game 2? He was awful in the cup.
Well, I don't think awful. I thought he was.
He was competent, Russ. I don't think he cost them games. I mean,
he cost them a game. Go back and look at it. He definitely cost them a game because I covered it. Like I remember, he cost them 1 game. But here's what I would say though: it's easy to say, well, McCarr just has to step up, and so does McKinnon. And we said that last game, and they did, right? Because they're those kinds of players. But what I did see is you have to always replace. Nikushkin was their top goal scorer, right? And somebody who I saw 2 players really step up in his absence. Casey Middlestat's one of them. This is the best I've seen Casey Middlestat play. Like this is what I always thought he could be when he was drafted, and it took him a while because he had to build his strength and all. We know his whole story. And so that's one thing. Drouin's silently been really good. Like he's been sneaky good, but also I've noticed now Zach Parise has a little bit in his step again. And so these kinds of guys can step up for them, and you still get the big periods. Doesn't have to be a whole game, but big periods from McCarr and McKinnon. I think the Avalanche still win this game. And
Russ, how many years did we hear Drouin wants to play with McKinnon, and back to when he was in Tampa and he was failing. All he needs to do is play with the guy who he played with in junior, Nathan McKinnon. I mean,
he earned it though. You know what I mean? Like,
no, but he was at a point in his career where things didn't work out in Montreal. He signed a 1-year deal. He bet on himself. Now, I mean, he's played really well for them. He's had a good year. I mean, I'm sure they probably want to re-sign him now because he's really turned his career around. I'll also say this: Dallas has the goaltending advantage in this series, but Jake Ottinger was not strong in Game 5.
That game. Yeah.
If he plays like that, then Colorado has a good chance of winning the series. He's got to play like he did in the first 4 games. If he does, I think Dallas closes it out tonight.
I think Georgiev's always going to give up 2 or 3. But Colorado can score 4 a game.
Yeah. Andre had a bad game in the first series too against Vegas.
Right.
Well, he hasn't been quite as 100% effective like he can be. So, but Drouin's interesting. He's making less than $1 million, so he's going to hit the jackpot in the free agency. I see the projections on him are over $4 million now on a contract. So. I don't even know whether Colorado can fit him into the budget or not. So,
they might. Well, apparently, they cannot terminate the contract of Nichushkin based on the stage 3 of the stage 3 suspension for 6 months. So they can't do anything with it, and I believe that money counts against the cap because it's not like he's on LTIR, and when he has to apply for reinstatement with the league after 6 months. There's no guarantee that they will based on, I'm sure he's got to pass drug tests and things of that nature. So, I mean, that's sort of, they're sort of in limbo there, and you don't know about Landeskog in the future of his career as well. So, I mean,
he may be a guy that ends up on LTIR. It seemed like he got close this year and then we didn't hear anything. So it seemed like he was going to try it. And so I'm a little worried about him.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Yeah. I'm sorry. Okay, we'll call it a day there. We'll be back on Monday with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For the departed Jan Levine, for Kevin Allen and Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.